The next conductor you'll see tonight, starting off this portion, is named Brian Downey. He was my predecessor here at LVA in the role of director of bands. Right now, he works in the LVA development office, and he's just a great friend to all of us here at LVA and supportive of our band program. He's got a senior graduating on stage tonight. Very proud and excited to have join us my good friend Brian Downey. Give you some background on our next piece tonight in the program. So the next piece you'll be hearing is titled Love and Light, and that's composed by Brian Balmages. This piece represents what the structure, what would be referred to as a tone poem. And there's a lot in that title already, but you could guess just from the poem. But a tone poem in music is still structured, but if you think with Kirkpatrick Fanfare, there's like the theme that keeps coming back. There's a certain element to that with Love and Light, but because it's a tone poem, The composer treats it more of kind of like a wandering essay, almost like a journaling of sorts. And so it's cohesive, it's not random, but it's a little bit longer. You'll hear these kind of different threads or thoughts emerge a little bit more rapidly. There's a bunch of different sections, tempos, key centers. I'll read to you just some background on the piece that's really important to know. The following is excerpted from a letter to the composer by Elizabeth Elliot, the person who spearheaded the creation of the piece. On November 8th, 2018, this is the letter, our daughter Madison Hope Elliott was born. Her heart had stopped beating the day before, and I labored for 12 hours to get to hold her for the first and last time that day. It was the worst and best day of our lives. Turning to music for comfort was just the natural thing for me to do. It took a few months for me to mourn and grieve and finally crawl out of my pit long enough to start reaching out to composers. It was around January of 2019, after talking with Brian Balmages, that I knew I had found the right person. He understood the gravity of this piece and how far-reaching and healing it would be for so many families. I know that this piece will help so many families now and into the future. While Love and Light is for my daughter Madison, it is also for all the babies in heaven that we have lost. But more importantly, it is for the parents. From the composer. How does a composer tackle something like this? And why would a composer tackle something like this? Again, the composer speaking. I realized this music was meant to tackle 3 impossible questions. And so with the help and guidance of faith, I decided to see where the music would guide me. Love and Light is in 3 sections. The first section asks the question, what does unconditional love sound like? Not temporary love, but full-on unconditional love. Then the second question, what does it sound like when that unconditional love is shattered? I intentionally use the word shattered instead of broken because unconditional love is never broken. But events in our lives do come along that shatter our emotions and cause tremendous amounts of pain. What does that sound like? And finally, the last and most difficult question, what does it sound like when a child first sees the face of God? I spent countless hours thinking about this and searching for the sounds that seemed to make sense of it all. The answer I came up with makes sense to me, and hopefully it will make sense to the listener as well. While there are massive moments, I realized it all began with a very intimate, personal, and quiet encounter. I decided that I wanted to write a lullaby that would be a unifying element throughout the piece. This original lullaby is present throughout the work, first stated by oboe and piano, and then including a comforting, triumphant, and powerful setting towards the end of the piece. Finally, the entire piece is based on a 3-note motif, presented at the very beginning of the work. While the 3 notes are used and developed throughout the piece, it is not until the last section that it becomes apparent that these 3 notes are the first 3 notes of Salvation is Created, a popular and powerful choral work by Pavel Chesnikov. We'll take a brief tuning note and then share our performance of Love and Light with you. Check, check. What an amazing piece, right? Just a brief, sorry, just hard to put the fonts rolling like that. Just a brief ad here, if you'll indulge me. I want to start by saying thank you so much to everyone who supported the Parent Funding Agreement, our PFA, this year. We were really excited to have over 76 families support this initiative. That's about half the program, and we cannot thank those families enough. I always have friends ask me this question, or even strangers, because they know what happens here at LVA, and so one of their first questions, if they're just asking about the school, is, what's your budget? And I always chuckle and tell them it's $0. Our budget every year is $0. And this is because our entire budget for initiatives outside of the standard school day, so the lights are on and the kids are here, but anything outside of that, guest artists, music, buying new pieces like Love and Light was a new purchase recently. Love and Light, just as a reference for this program, that piece costs $250 just to buy the music to perform it. And I think it's worth every penny. But again, the Parent Funding Agreement is just so important to support what we do here. I wanted to list off the guest artists, and this is not even a complete list. These are just the maybe S tier of the guests. So we had Dr. Timothy Ray, Director of Bands at Texas A&M University, Jeremy Wilson, trombone professor at Vanderbilt, Donald McKinney, Director of Bands at Indiana University, the Grammy Award-winning composer Michael Dougherty, remember he did a residency with all three bands, was with us at our Smith Center concert, award-winning composer Viet Quang, the Noise Saxophone Quartet who performed Second Nature at our winter concert and on the California trip, Dr. Mike Fansler from Western Illinois University, the Kodachrome Saxophone Quartet, Dr. Alfred Watkins, and very recently, Dr. Richie Hawley on clarinet. So that is a pretty heavy list of guests. You could put those people together and make a college at any, and make a faculty at any university and be really pleased with all of those people. And so I just wanted to thank you again and just share with you that direct impact that those guests have. For the students to get that jolt of inspiration, and frankly for us as teachers to get to have that same jolt and cross paths and work with and learn from these visionaries in our field just means so much to us. And so that's again in addition to the sheet music, the instruments, all the other things. So again, I just wanted to thank our PFA supporters, if we could give them a round of applause. It is so important to what we do. I want to share with you two of our headline guests for next year. So it'll be another long list as the year goes on, but our two kind of big guests that we know of at this time. One of our guests is called Eighth Blackbird, and that's a just cool name for a chamber group. And that chamber group includes flute, clarinet, percussion, piano, violin, and cello. So it's very cool. There's some band instruments in there and then some other string instruments. They'll be joining us for master classes and leading up to our Smith Center concert. They'll be performing Viet Quang's Vital Signs with us. It's another fantastic piece by him. And of course, giving master classes to the students. And that group is the NSYNC or the Beatles of chamber music. I mean, if you think of a chamber music group, that is the first group that comes to mind for most people. And it's kind of, there were a few years ago I wanted to do the piece and I thought we just probably can't. And we have kind of organized things in a way where it would be possible, but certainly would appreciate your support with that initiative. Second up, we have Kevin Day, who's a composer who's actually moving to Vegas this summer. The timing couldn't be better. And then Christina Jennings, who's a fantastic flute player from CU Boulder. They'll be joining us to perform one of the first performances, not the premiere, but not many other people have played it. It's a piece called Glimmerglass for flute and band. We'll do that on our fall concert next year. So again, just wanted to say thank you to our PFA supporters, kind of give a glimpse of what's to come, and hopefully get you excited about continuing to support these incredible students next year. It is my great pleasure to welcome, and I'm so excited. This has been such a great year with Mr. Seeson, his final concert of his first year at LVA. Give a huge welcome, please. It's a great pleasure. Thank you very much, Mr. Seaton. Our next piece is a march by a lesser-known march composer, W.P. Chambers.
He was raised in Pennsylvania and became a very accomplished cornetist, bandmaster, and composer. And so the title of this piece is Revelation March. There's a biblical reference to it, and that biblical reference occurs in the middle of the march. It's very uncommon for a march to have a chord progression such as the one you're going to hear, and it's very organ-like, one you might hear in a church. So please enjoy Revelation March by W.P. Chambers.
This is our thank you portion of the evening before we do our last piece, and it is a touch long, but we'll talk quickly, and I just think it's so important because here at